Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about why Stargirl was the best DC Universe slash CW show in terms of characters being realistic and stuff. So I just got through reviewing episode 6 called Justice Society of Stargirl, and there's one part I left out for a reason. I wanted to make a separate video on this part. So there's been tons of great, superhero type shows. Some are good, some are mediocre, some are downright terrible, but some are pretty good. And Stargirl is, for now, one of my favorite ones, even though I particularly don't like season 2 all that much because I feel once it truly went over to the CW infected it like an STD. But season 1 I love to death. It's like really the only one of the few superhero drama type shows I actually own on DVD. Even some of the other ones I liked in the past I don't own, but this is one I own. I love, see, this isn't gonna be like no rundown review, nothing like that. Like you've already heard me talk about, I love the visual effects of the first season. I love the characters. I love the acting. I love the costumes. I love the whole setting vibe of like everything, when it comes to the first season, especially the music. And that's probably because it was a DC Universe show at that time. If you're not familiar, DC Universe was an app where you can watch DC animation, movies, and TV shows. They had them all. And you also could read comics. But it went belly up. And then it turned into HBO Max. And now they still focus on pretty much just being a regular streaming app. They have a variety of shows, so it's no more just centrally like comic book type stuff, but the DC stuff is still on there. But sometimes you'll forget that because there's more other stuff on there. So there were a couple of like DC Universe shows: Titans, Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn. Those are the only ones at that time. Oh, and Swamp Thing. And so those were the only ones at the time. And then Stargirl came out, but for some bizarre reason, they decided not to. They only aired the first episode on the streaming app, and then everything else went to the CW for some bizarre reason. Not sure why. I can't find no real article about it. It just went over there for some reason. I always assumed because Stargirl is more lighthearted and upbeat, and it didn't fit the tone of like DC Universe, right? Because Titans, Doom Patrol, those are very gritty shows. Dark show, they drop the F-bomb like every like couple of seconds and stuff. And there's lots of like gritty goreness and stuff like that. So I always assume, okay, maybe since it's more like a fluff type show, maybe that's why I went to the CW. But I really don't know why. That's just my assumption. And so Titans for me is a mixed bag. It feels like a messy show. I watch it, I like it, but it's just a messy show. Doom Patrol, I like. It has a lot of good emotions. It just has no action. And at times it's a little too silly, especially in the third season. But sometimes that silliness is so hilarious and everything that you can't help but to laugh, right? And Harley Quinn is just like a wacky, wackadoo type show. And Swamp Thing, I already reviewed that. I don't like Swamp Thing. You don't focus on your love interest on the show. You focus on the protagonist. And it's called Swamp Thing, but you rarely saw Swamp Thing in it, and you rarely heard from Swamp Thing, and you rarely got the emotion from Swamp Thing. It was mostly just the love interest show. And so when it comes to Stargirl, like I said before, it's not a rundown review. Like, I'm not gonna talk about like all the awesomeness of it, but there's one particular scene in the 6th episode that really struck me, and it's something you rarely see on any other superhero show. It's where the hero realizes this is no longer fun and games. This is serious. Death. See, superheroes and other shows, they've seen dead people before. And sometimes when they see it, some of the heroes are so numb to it, it's like, okay, whatever. And there's some that just kind of like, ew, gross type thing. And there are others that are so horrified, it's like a female actress from like Star Trek TOS, Captain I'm Scared. Like it's one of those type things, And but there's a Pacific scene in this sixth episode that really struck me, that made me think, my God, that's so realistic. That's something how real people would react. And and if there were superheroes in the real world, a lot of them will probably react like this too. Now there are, I guess you could call them vigilantes in the real world we live in, where they're like these people who dress up in costumes and they tell folks they don't do this. Sometimes they beat them up and they get arrested, and sometimes they don't. It's a weird thing that's in the city. There's a special on it somewhere on YouTube. Like it's real. It's bizarre, and one day somebody's gonna get hurt and killed. But anyway. And also, vigilantism is like against the law, so don't do it. Anyway, so the scene in question is when the JSA, the Justice Society of America, they go to stop the gambler and they see a dead body on the floor. Now, before this point, this JSA is the 2.0 version, a teen version. This is how I felt like Titan should have been. So they're very cocky in everything. They like, only one of them has ever been out in the field doing superhero stuff, beating a bad guy. But even then, she had help, and a lot of times she defeated the bad guy by like randomness, and it was mostly the cosmic staff that did it. I'm talking about Stargirl. When she blasted like Brainwave in the face, she did it out of fear, and it was mostly the staff reacting and everything. Then other times she's been out in the field, she hasn't fared very good, and her stepfather had to like bail her out. So she's very, very, very inexperienced. Then you have Wildcat, who didn't want to be a hero at first, and then when she finally put on the suit, she didn't really do no superhero type stuff. She was just slinking around and spying and stuff. But she does have an amateur boxing background, but she's never actually been out in the field and fought people with superpowers. Then you have Beth, who's just cowardly and has no powers and has goggles that can analyze everything. And then you have Rick, who's our man, and he has super strength and he has a lot of anger in him, and he's probably been in a couple of fist fights, but never against like supervillains, right? And the scene in question, and the cast did a great job acting. So they're ready to fight the gambler, and they're like, the gambler doesn't have any superpowers, he's just like a hacker, we should be able to take him, no problem. So they're slinking around the building and they see a dead body on the floor, and there's actual blood, and the camera work in this in the direction is beautiful. It takes time to just pan on the team as they're looking in shock and awe. They cannot believe what they have really just seen. It is a true dead body. Now, Courtney, Stargirl, has seen her friend at school get murdered, get hit by a car. So it was painful for her. She cried, and all this other stuff. But we never got to see anything past that. And so she's seen death before, but in the terms of an accident. And she knows who caused this accident. But it was a supervillain. But then when she sees this dead body, this isn't done by magical powers or high-tech machinery. It's done by a handgun, because the gambler uses a gun and the body's just lying there, lifeless and everything. And then it slowly goes to all the kids' reactions, just like in a row, like, from left to right. And you see the shock and awe on their face. And one of the girls, it might be Wildcat, it might be Dr. Midnight, but one of them puts their hands over their mouth and they just can't believe what it is they saw. And, they're realizing for the first time that maybe, just maybe, they're in over their heads. And there's a good possibility they can get hurt and everything, because they really are just a bunch of teenagers in high school, and these villains have been around for decades and stuff, and they killed the original JSA. So then Rick, Mr. Hothead, is all like, let's finish this and stuff like that. And So then they get a taste of some good old fashioned butt whooping from two supervillains. But these two supervillains, technically they're not even supervillains, they're just villains because they don't have magical powers or anything like that. They're just really skilled at beating people. It's Sportsmaster, who use sporting equipment to like whoop on people, and it's Tigress, who has martial arts abilities and has like a crossbow. And they're getting, and then, you know, three of the four JSA members, they have powers and they should be able to withstand two regular humans, and they can't. They're literally getting their butts handed to them. And so, as they're all about to literally blow up and everything, in comes Pat on the mech suit and saves them. And then, so after that, they're not phased by that because they're more excited about seeing a giant robot. So I understand that. But then, you know, Courtney tells Pat, like, you know, she couldn't believe how her team acted. They could have got hurt. They could have got killed. And then she realized what Pat's been saying this whole time. And it's that moment that lets you that lets you know that how real not only the situation is, but how real these characters are, how they're gonna react in real time. Because a lot of times in superhero shows, sometimes you don't just see that, and if you do, it's so staged and everything, you know. And of course, this is staged as well because it's a scripted show. But like, you get what I'm saying and stuff. And so that's one reason why I've always liked this show more, because I actually feel like these are real life people putting on suits, pretending to play hero, and dealing with the ramifications of it and stuff. And that's one reason why this show is just so great. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.